Welcome back to GB in America, where I'm absolutely delighted to be speaking to Melissa Armo, the founder and chief executive of the Stock Swoosh. Tell me, Melissa, what is the Stock Swoosh?
Well, thank you so much for having me. Good morning. I'm here in New York City, and the Stock Swoosh is an educational firm that I founded 14 years ago where I teach people how to trade the stock market. And it's a very exciting time to trade the stock market. We're looking forward to 2025 here at the Stock Swoosh. I think everyone is looking forward to 2025, and we may see record highs. We almost hit over the high actually yesterday in the stock market.
Well, it's a great thing to teach people. I first came to public notoriety when I was quite young, before my teenage years, for being a stock market investor. Now that's about 40 years ago now, but it's something I've always been interested in. So I'm so glad you're educating people because there's a lot to know about it. But
Definitely.
there's also a lot to know about the World Economic Forum at Davos. Donald Trump speaking there, Donald Trump not physically present, but dominating the agenda. What does the Trump presidency mean for the World Economic Forum and Davos, man?
Well, as we've been seeing the last few hours, there's so much optimism going on right now in Davos. Again, like you said, Trump's going to be speaking virtually today. He wasn't there. He was just inaugurated on Monday. He's done a lot even in this several first days. So we're really excited to see what happens. He's going to take questions. That's going to be very interesting too. And it's also going to be interesting to see how the stock market reacts. I think one of the unknowns with Trump coming into office is what is going to happen with interest rates across the board, not just in the US, but globally. That's been a concern, and that's still kind of an unknown. Will interest rates get cut twice this year or not at all? But I think overall, people are excited because they want to see some of the situations with Russia and Ukraine. They want to see some stabilization in global markets. And we also want to see less regulation for opening up energy and things like that. So I think people are going to start to invest more, not just in the United States, but globally, if they see that countries are stronger and working together. So look for more of that and more of the optimism, not just this week, but going forward in 2025.
But isn't Donald Trump's fundamental challenge to the Davos view of the world that he's pulled out of the World Health Organization? He thinks the climate change agenda is a lot of hocus pocus. He isn't really interested in international partnerships. He's interested in putting America first. This is a real challenge for the Davos consensus that's been so powerful in the last 20 or 30 years.
Well, he's definitely interested in making America great again and putting America first, which is how he won the election twice now. But I will say this, it's not that Trump is not interested in partnerships. He's interested in partnerships. He's not interested in other countries taking advantage of the United States. And that is one of his big beefs with the tariffs. So he feels that, the US, the economy here, we buy a lot of products and goods and services from other countries. And he feels like we get tariffed highly when we want to import into other countries, and it's just not fair. So he's trying to stabilize things. And again, talking about the unknowns with his presidency, that is an unknown. What is going to happen with tariffs? And he's talking about doing things on a sliding scale. So it's not that he doesn't care about partnerships with other countries. He cares about making things more fair for the United States, and talking about the World Economic Forum and him pulling out of, the WHO. It's really one of these things where, again, we fund so much of this research. We're funding so many things, and it's just not equal. So we should know a lot of things that happened with COVID, and we still don't know. 7 million people died. We never got any answers on that. That was almost 5 years ago now, next month. We wanted answers, and we never really got them. Of course, that was the last time that Trump ran in 2020. Maybe we would have gotten answers if Trump had won in 2020. But I think he's in a better place now. The world is in a better place now, where they're going to be more open. Countries, world leaders are going to be more open to listening what he says and working with him, where maybe they wouldn't have been in 2020.
I think what he's doing with the World Health Organization is absolutely first class. He's absolutely right. The UK gives it far too much money. It's a corrupt organization. It lied to us about COVID. I cannot understand why countries still fund it. But the sort of question I'm getting at is, isn't there a philosophical difference between Donald Trump's approach and the Davos approach? So the Davos approach is that world leaders and world businessmen, the leaders of multinationals and of the multinational organizations, come together and they sort everything out. They don't worry too much about electorates because they're really clever people who know what's best. Trump doesn't care for all this nonsense. He knows what's best for America. He's got a mandate to do it. And yes, he'll have a partnership with you if you agree with him, but he's not interested in the UN. He loathes the European Union. He's, as I say, pulled out of the WHO. Other international organizations he's contemptuous of. I happen to think rightly. But there's such a philosophical challenge to the way the elite sovereign governments have sought to come together to rule the world in recent decades.
Well, you're right. I mean, you're absolutely right. There is a philosophical difference, and I don't think that's going to change. And Trump certainly isn't going to change. So, and maybe Europe
Correct.
isn't going to change either. So maybe countries will be more open to listening to him, where they were so critical of him in the past, which I think created some of the animosity going into his last term, or for the most of his last term, actually, with Europe. But you're seeing now, again, like I'm talking about, with illegal immigration happening, it's happening overseas, it's happening here in the United States. He's trying to get a handle on that. Plus, again, the instability that you're seeing overseas with Russia and Ukraine. So Europe needs us as much as we philosophically may have differences of opinion. And again, Trump's not going to change his attitude about that. But the fact is, maybe people will be more open-minded and saying, well, maybe we do need America for certain things and want to work with Trump in his next administration.
And it seems to me it's very interesting how corporate America has responded very quickly to Donald Trump.
Absolutely, yeah.
I used to be an investment manager, and I always thought ESG was a failure of fiduciary duty. I thought my job as fund manager was to make money for my clients, not to moralize to companies around the world. But ESG had become very popular. Lots of American corporates, particularly the big tech companies, had bought into it. Trump's elected, they've thrown it in the bin. Do you think this is going to happen more broadly, and that Davos is actually about making money, isn't it? And you've got a lot of big corporates there. Do you think they will look at Trump and say, you know, global warming, who cares really? We're going to get on with our job of making money. Trump's setting a new agenda, and we're going to adopt that. So do you think Davos adapts to the Trump agenda?
I think it might, which is why it's going to be really interesting to see when he takes questions today. Trump is really good talking off the cuff. He's done several press conferences talking off the cuff since Monday. And again, President Biden really didn't do press conferences like that off the cuff that often. So I think that you're correct that they could be more open to that. But making money is the whole point when you're investing for clients with these banks. So again, that's why you're seeing banks run up and make brand new all-time highs too. We just had the start of earnings season this week. JPM is at new highs today. Chase Bank, huge global bank. So again, people are very optimistic, not just to invest, but also to build on their businesses and to have global partners. And again, speaking of this, what you're talking about, since we're talking about Davos, a TikTok thing that's been happening, which is what's going to happen with that. Are we going to have the relationship with China with TikTok? Is Trump going to find someone that's going to buy it? That's another thing that could come up even today as well. But, getting back to what you were saying, I think that overall, the issues with climate change and all those things, there's going to be a disagreements with it, but people should want to invest and make money. And we were talking about AI because the AI stocks have been flying high too. It takes energy to run AI. It's going to take a lot of energy to run AI. So, I mean, we have to open up some of these oil leases that we've had in the United States and have to start drilling again. How are we going to produce all of this AI usage if we don't have energy to run these things? And some of these concepts about windmills and everything, while it's great to think about it, we still are human beings and we live on the planet and we have to function. And not only that, we want to continue to thrive and reach new heights. And that's one of the reasons why I think the partnership with Elon Musk and Trump has been so beneficial, not just running up into the election, because I think Musk helped Trump win the election. I think that those types of partnerships with businesses, and again, other businesses too, you saw that already this week when they started talking about AI yesterday, that is going to help not just the US, but that's going to help the global economy as well. So people are going to be open-minded. And if European leaders want to lag behind, they can. But I think in the end, they may turn the tide. And things like DEI, again, that could be a slow change for other countries. Maybe they'll never completely get off of it. But you're already seeing businesses in the United States that have dropped it because it's not the agenda anymore. People should be hired like you. You're good at what you do. That's why you got hired. It's ridiculous to hire someone just because of DEI if they're not good at their job.
And indeed, it creates a whole industry of people working in DEI, which is an expense for corporates, which they're now saving. So that boosts productivity because people working in DEI are fundamentally unproductive. They're a cost. And the energy
Exactly.
issue is fascinating. You're so right about AI. Over the last couple of days, there's been very little wind in the UK. So we've been getting 60% of our electricity from gas-fired electricity stations. And those are all aging because they're not building new ones because of the green myth, really.
Mhm.
And I think Donald Trump is going to appeal to electorates globally who are going to say, look, I'd like a bit of that. I want to have cheap energy. I want to get a job on merit, on fair competition. And if Donald Trump can deal with the borders, well, every European government that doesn't want them to follow him will be out because it's the big
Exactly.
issue. It's the big issue for electors in continental Europe.
It's a huge problem here in the United States. Again, I live in New York City, massive problem here. And we're watching to see exactly how this all turns out. We let all these people into the country. We were talking about COVID. Well, they were so big on COVID testing. We haven't been testing any of these people that have been coming into the country. We don't know where they're from. They're not going through the proper channels. It's been an absolute nightmare here. And I know that you said, it's the same thing over there. And again, could be worse over there. I don't know, but it's definitely a situation that leaders have to get a handle on. If people run over there, new leaders want to run against the current leaders. You're seeing that in Canada with the prime minister going to step down. Different
Yes.
people could be in different roles across the board 12, 24 months from now globally. So I'm not so sure if everybody isn't on board with Trump, they may be out.
Well, I mean, it's what I think is so interesting symbolically about this address to Davos so shortly after being elected, because as a understanding what's been going on politically, not just in the US, but in other countries, it seems to me you've seen an electorate and the elected getting further and further apart, that it seemed whoever you voted for, everything remained the same. Nobody could ever change anything. And there were bureaucrats and quangos that got on with things regardless of who was in office. And Trump's come in and changed it in 48 hours. And that other
Exactly.
politicians will want to win elections. I used to be a member of parliament myself. I'm keen on winning elections. And that means responding to voters. And therefore, Trump's influence could be enormous. And it's very antipathetic to what Davos has stood for historically.
Exactly. And you're talking about the people that vote. Well, again, we pay so much money in taxes. You do over there across the pond as well. Where is all the money going to? We've been paying for so many things with the illegals coming in. It's almost bankrupt New York City. It's got to stop. At one point, does it stop? And we're in so much debt here in the United States. That's another thing that Trump hopefully will tackle as well. That's why he's wanting to cut back. I mean, they're telling workers that work for the federal government they have to come in. This work from home is done. And a lot of people probably are going to quit because they want to work from home or find other jobs. It's going to have a huge impact. But we were talking about tariffs. We're talking about one of the concerns for regular people. So again, inflation is high, still way too high in 2025. Came down slightly since COVID. That's another thing that Trump has to tackle. And again, same thing over there as well. When people go out and they're buying goods and things, everything costs too much. A lot of that's tied into energy. When the cost
True.
of oil is so high, diesel fuel is so high, how do you think we get everything? Everything we order from Amazon, everything gets brought to us in trucks and cars. And so if oil prices are still too high, then everything is going to be still too high. And until the price of oil comes down dramatically, I think the cost of everything is still going to be high. So the tariffs, again, is a threat. That's really how Trump's trying to use it. It's not that
Yeah.
he's going to put the tariffs on and leave them on. And again, people will vote according to their pocketbooks. So
Yeah.
if they see that oil prices are coming down, they're going to be happier. They're going to go and vote thinking that things are going to get better in their everyday lives because that's really all that people care about.
Yes, just as an aside, I'm absolutely delighted Donald Trump is telling people to get back to work. I was the first one to do this in the UK government, telling people to get back to work, and it annoyed the left intensely, who wanted people to idle at home. And it was an uphill battle to get them back. And I'm so pleased that Donald Trump said, "Come back or you're fired." I wish I'd had the power to do that. It's wonderfully refreshing. And you're absolutely right about prices. The only thing I'd say about tariffs is that tariffs in the end put prices up for consumers,
They
and
do.
consumers
They
are
do.
voters. and therefore tariffs can be risky for his voter base.
They are, but he's using them as a threat. And that's why he's doing the sliding scale. So he's saying, well, by this date in February, by this date. So he's trying to do it as a way. Again, remember, Trump's a negotiator. He's a big negotiator. He likes to make deals. He's a deal maker. So he's trying to make deals to better things, buy this more goods, and we won't put tariffs on you, and so on and so forth. And he also wants people to actually, companies to invest more in the United States and build more things in the United States. So he's using this as a negotiating tactic for the business owners and also the heads of countries so that he can get better deals here in the United States. But again, if inflation goes down dramatically, even if people end up paying slightly more for something, I don't think that it could be still a wash that we're still paying less in 24 months from now than we were for the last 4 years, because everyone was saying inflation was going down. To be honest with you, some of the prices that we're paying for things here, particularly like eggs, dairy, here, even in New York City, are so high. Right now, it's $12 at some grocery stores that you go to for a dozen eggs. That's absolutely ridiculous. These
Good
aren't like
heavens,
golden
yes.
eggs. And I don't know what they are there, but that is just absolutely insane. So a lot of these prices used to be 1/3 of what they were back before COVID. So it's COVID, it's oil prices, it's bad management in the government overall. And so that's one of the things that Trump ran on and promised the constituents and said, we're going to work on inflation. We're going to work on bringing the prices down. So he's going to keep that in mind when he's negotiating these tariffs. It's more of a negotiating tactic and a threat than anything else. And getting back to what we were saying about the work from home, it's very difficult to have social relationships with people or interactions with people if everybody's just working from home and never going out of their homes. It's very difficult. And the other businesses lose money. You're not going to the dry cleaners because you're not wearing a suit every day. You're not having lunch. You know, we're not getting a bagel in the morning at the guy at the corner. So there's so many businesses, particularly here again in Manhattan, that have been negatively affected from the work at home. So I really hope that, you know, people do start to want to go to work more and socialize more, because I think it's better for society as a whole and it's better for the economy.
Well, I'm in entire agreement with you. And dare I say, I'm a little bit jealous at the moment because I think you've got something really exciting happening politically. And we've got the dire Keir Starmer taking us into a socialist hell. But there we go. Thank you very much for joining me. Another great speech from Donald Trump, hitting it to them where it hurts and leading for his own country. It's absolutely wonderful. Melissa, thank you so much, and good luck in educating people about stock markets.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.